Good morning to all of you. Thank you. Thank you. That was nice. Welcome to all of you, to those who just got back from a couple of weeks in Europe, and to those who may not have traveled further than your mailbox this week, and to everybody in between. So we're glad you're here. Welcome to those who are joining us on live stream or who are perhaps watching us later on YouTube. So it's good to be together as a community. So it's been another tumultuous week in our country and in our world. And in times like this, I'm glad for this community where we can come and we gather as a community whose identity is not based on our geographic location, but is based on our chosen identity. Here at Marion, we are an Anabaptist community, which means we exist outside of national borders. Our community is located around the world, and I'm grateful for that. As an Anabaptist congregation, we take seriously the teachings of Jesus, and we believe that what Jesus taught is the way we should live now. It's not a future, but it's the way we should live now, and we say that we belong to a separate kingdom. So that doesn't exempt us from activity in our local, geographic-based community, but it does perhaps flavor the way we interact with others. And so when we take seriously the followings of Jesus, we say, well, Jesus had two basic instructions, and those were to love God and love people. And really, when it comes down to that, I think those are easy enough to remember. So you will hear today our first song. Mark has chosen one which is, I saw a note that says it's an early Anabaptist communion hymn. I don't know if you chose it knowing that, but we're relying heavily on Anabaptist stuff today, I believe. So we're going to have that, and our call to worship is loosely based on Menno Simon's words, another early Anabaptist. So I invite you to stand and to join me in this call to worship. Wake up, O people of Marion Mennonite Church.
Through Jesus' following faith, and not by sleeping. It clothes the naked, it comforts the sorrowful, it shelters the destitute, it serves those in harmony, it binds up that which is wounded, it has become all things to all people.
Let us rise up in true faith and shine the light of love to the world this day.
We are people of God's peace. It's 797 in Voices Together, if you want to use the book.
We are people of God's peace as a new creation. Love unites and strengthens us at this celebration. Sons and daughters of the Lord, serving one another, a new covenant of peace binds us all together. We are heralds of God's peace for the new creation, and by grace the word of peace reaches every nation. Though we falter and we fail, Christ will still renew us by the Holy Spirit's power. God is working through us. We are children of God's peace in this new creation, spreading joy and happiness through God's great salvation. Hope we bring in spirit meek in our daily living, peace with everyone we seek, good for evil giving. We are servants
Prince of God's peace, of the new creation. Choosing peace, we faithfully serve with heart's devotion. Jesus Christ, the Prince of Peace, confidence will give us. Christ the Lord is our defense. Christ will never leave us.
Okay, Peaceful Man of Galilee is 573, if I can find it. Oops, there we go. This one, I believe this is actually not an unfamiliar tune. It's a bit complex, but not that unfamiliar. But I believe it's new words. So, we will play the whole thing through for you once, just to.
Strong, peaceful man of Galilee, robed with your strength we long to be, not to revenge, to heal and pray, to turn the cheek and tribute pay. Robed with your strength we long to be, strong, peaceful man of Galilee. Strong, righteous man of Galilee, dressed with your peace we long to be. In temple court your cleansing rod, on greed and lies the wrath of God. Dressed with your peace we long to be, strong, righteous man of Galilee. Strong, suffering man of Galilee, clad in your grace we hope to be. Love at the well, share Martha's loss, forgive the nails and take the cross. Clad in your grace we hope to be, strong, suffering man of Galilee. God's peaceful man of Galilee, love's triumph we at last will see, to crumble every boundary wall, build highways to the hearts of all. Love's triumphs we at last will see, God's peaceful man of Galilee.
And 150. 150. This one is a new one. Gentle God, when we are driven. We will play the whole thing through one time for you.
In the mirror of earth's madness, let us see our ravaged face. In the turmoil of a people, let compassion find a place. Touch our hearts to make amends. See our enemies as friends. Let our strength be in forgiving, as forgiven we must be. One to one in costly loving, finding trust and growing free. Gentle God, be our release. Gentle Spirit, teach us peace.
Join with me in prayer for the offering. God of extravagant mercy, with outstretched hands you have poured out wonder and pleasure and delight, goodness and beauty and bounty. So take these offerings, we pray, as our protest against all that is ugly and evil and impoverished, all that is trivial and wretched and tyrannical in our world and in ourselves, that we too may be poured out for the world. Amen. So the children, I believe are there children here? There are a few. We'll be coming around with the mugs, so it may take them a little while, but find them with your coins, and the adults can put their offerings in the baskets.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Sabella, and welcome to Babylon. I've lived here my whole life, 56 years, and I'm so excited to tell you all about it. Babylon is a beautiful place with our hanging walls and gardens. I live on a fairly busy street with vines growing up all the houses. At the ends of the vines are flowers of every color you can imagine: crimsons, indigos, violets. I live with my older brother, Zaidu. I talk to him about everything. Although he doesn't talk much, and sometimes I'm not sure if he can even hear me. But still, I thoroughly enjoy his company. I also have a cow. Her name is Sprinkles because she loves the rain and she is white with little brown spots, so it fits. Every morning I wake up early to milk her. Of course, then I go back to bed for about 2 more hours before I actually do it. At least I have good intentions. When I finish milking her, I pick flowers off the vines on my house and go into town to sell the milk and flowers. I just love town. There are so many smells. The smell of flowers like tulips and lavender, the aroma of cumin, nutmeg, and cloves in the marketplace, the fresh scent of pita bread baking, and the sounds of goats and horses roaming the fields and streets, which, of course, offer their own distinctive aromas. Yes, indeed, Babylon is an amazing place, but we do have a strict code to follow. Not that it's a bad thing. Our king wants justice for all, including the oppressed and poor, which I admire. This code is written on a 7-foot, 5-inch black stone stele and is known as a monument. It's a very tall stone slab. It is located in the center of the market for all to see and none to forget. Some examples of our laws are: if a man knock out the teeth of his equal, his teeth shall be knocked out. If a son strike his father, his hand shall be cut off. If a man broke the bone of one of his equals, his own bone would be broken in return. If a man put out the eye of another man, his eye shall be put out. Of course, there are some other ones, like if a man has struck a free woman with child and has caused her to miscarry, he shall pay 10 shekels for her miscarriage. If a bull has gone wild and gored a man and caused his death, there can be no suit against the owner. But we're not going to talk about those. All in all, it's an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. That's just the way things are. And I'm reminded of that whenever I'm walking into town and I see a man without an arm. Some people think that this law is harsh and unfair, but it keeps our town in order, and we're really better off with the code. There are some Hebrew people in our town because we captured them. Isn't our king powerful? Being the outgoing person I am, I find the need to talk to every one of them. Just a month ago, I was talking to one named Molly. I've talked with her before, and we've become good friends. This time, she and I met for raisin cakes, my favorite. We were talking about law, and as it turns out, Hebrew people's laws are very similar to ours. Here's what she told me about their law. Here's another old saying that deserves a second look. Eye for eye, tooth for tooth. Is that going to get us anywhere? I'm not sure why they added that to the end. It's unneeded nonsense. Why would anyone question the code? We have order and crime is low because people know what will happen if they disobey. So what if I saw a boy struggling to eat without his tongue? I wonder what he did wrong. I wonder which law he broke. It's an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. That's just the way things are. But let me tell you about this one. A few weeks ago, I was walking into town as I do every day,
and I saw a young boy, maybe no older than 12, struggling from the weight of many sacks he was being forced to carry. A man was yelling at him and saying things like, "Come on, boy, is that all you can carry? You're weak." The boy then collapsed, dropping all the bags and spilling the contents all over the road. I could see the tears in his eyes as he said, "I'm sorry, Father, I just can't do it." But the man wasn't forgiving at all. He just continued on harassing him, saying things like calling him a failure, an embarrassment, and an utter disgrace to the family. The kid kept trying to apologize to his father, but the man wouldn't stop, just going on and shaming him. I really wanted to help the boy, but what could I do? I am a woman with no authority. I think people would laugh if I tried to tell them what to do. I then saw the kid begin to clench his fist and anger rose on his face until there was silence and shock over all who were watching. The boy gasped when he realized what he did. He burst into tears and apologized, begging for mercy. But it wasn't granted, and his hand was chopped off. After that, I really didn't feel like selling my milk and flowers anymore. I went home immediately and just was trying to process everything that I had just seen. The next few days, whenever I went into town, I saw the boy. As if his work wasn't hard before, it was even harder with just one hand. My heart ached for him, and I became really angry with what happened. But then I caught myself. Wait a minute. The kid got what he deserved. An eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. That's just the way things are and the way things are supposed to be. Right? I mean, right? You hear what I'm saying? Wouldn't you all agree?
Hear these words of Jesus from the Gospel of Matthew. Do not think that I have come to abolish the law or the prophets. I have come not to abolish, but to fulfill. Truly, I tell you, until heaven and earth pass away, not one letter, not one stroke of a letter pass from the law until all is accomplished. Therefore, whoever breaks one of the least of these commandments and teaches others to do the same will be called least in the kingdom of heaven. But whoever does them and teaches them will be called great in the kingdom of heaven. For I tell you, unless your righteousness exceeds that of the scribes and the Pharisees, you will never enter the kingdom of heaven. When Jesus speaks these words, he has said a mouthful. When Jesus says, do not think that I have come to abolish the law or the prophets, he is grabbing headlines in Galilee. And when he adds, I have not come to abolish the law or the prophets, but to fulfill them, he is, as might be said at a Saturday night poker table, upping the ante. Jesus is upping the ante quite a bit. He is turning heads in the crowd with question mark bubbles hovering over top of them. Oh my, what things he is saying. Let us think about it for a second. When Jesus says, I have not come to abolish the law, he's talking about 5 scrolls, 5 full, lengthy scrolls. In our Bibles, that is about 281 sacred pages, give or take your translation. Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy, the Torah, the law, or better known as 281 pages of instruction. To any Jews who might be in the house this morning, I have not come to do away with any of it. Nope, not it. Which is a bit perplexing if you've ever read some of the wild stuff that's in there. Like Abram handing off his fetching wife to Pharaoh disguised as his gorgeous sister. What's up with that? Is that any way to treat your wife? hand her off? And in there, in the law, are instructions for group circumcision for all men, young and old, as a covenant requirement. Ouchie. And the terrible scenes from the city of Sodom that young girls should never be required to read. There's wild stuff included in there, in the law. And frankly, given his present moment on the mountain, I wish Jesus had said this: I have indeed come to do away with the law, or at least some parts of it. It would have been okay with me. But he doesn't. Jesus says, I have come to fulfill, and that's the line that gives us permission to keep on looking, to keep on digging for the good, even though some of the drama is incredibly awful. Well, then Jesus goes ahead and brings the prophets into it too. All of them. He says, I have not come to abolish the law or the prophets, which is another huge chunk of the Bible. If the law takes up some 281 sacred pages in our written Bible, give or take, guess how many pages the prophets include? 415 sacred pages, depending on font size and other such matters as page numbering. And not everything is pleasant reading in these pages either. I mean, what are we to make of God's prophet marrying a prostitute to make his point public? I mean, and what would you think if you saw God's prophet setting up a cook stove on the courthouse square in Chambersburg, cooking his food over poo to make his point public? It's all in there in this book we call holy. And again, I personally would have been okay if Jesus in his moment on the mountain would have said, I have come to abolish the prophets. Some of it anyway. But he doesn't. He says, fulfill. And that gives us permission to keep on looking, to keep on digging, looking for clues of goodness, even though some of the scenes in the prophets are gruesome and gross. Digging in the law to find its heart about not stealing, about not lying, about not committing adultery, away from wishing you had your neighbor's laptop or truck or tractor or camel or your neighbor's house for a better life. And finding this word of the law is very near to you. It is in your mouth. It is in your heart for you to observe. Jesus comes to reclaim these words. At Colby and Franny's wedding rehearsal, I found myself walking alongside of Franny's grandmother, Miriam. She is devout Catholic, and she had some questions about Colby and Mennonites. She had been doing some research, she told me, and I do wonder what she might have read. But I told her, in a nutshell, Mennonites have always tried to pay attention to the teachings of Jesus, and I do not know what has inspired Pastor Dustin to launch this Sermon on the Mount series, but I applaud it. Not because it is a smorgasbord of our Mennonite home cooking, but because there are always things worthy of our continual attention, like the human impulse to retaliate. From what Abby has said, the whole idea of eye for an eye was the normal way of it in her hometown of Babylon as a way of keeping order, written down in the marketplace so that everyone would be on the same page. Law and order, a legal way to keep things from getting out of hand. Case closed. Chop, chop. But then Jesus comes along, years later. You have heard how places in the world operate, an eye for an eye, a punch for a punch, a retort for a retort, an insult for insult. You have heard about this way of operating, but I say to you, no. Back it up. Cut it off before it gets there. Cut things off before things snowball out of hand. And then Jesus adds, those who carry out the commandments are the greatest. Those who memorize the commandments and then go off and break them anyway, these be the leastest. But be the greatest. It is an MO. It is a mode of operation, Jesus is saying. And in a minute, Jonathan will imagine what Jesus' words might mean to a 2022er, which is exactly where all this stuff needs to go. To people on our streets, in our hallways, in our cubicles, and in the aisles of Aldi's, and in our voting booths, you name it. And this may be jumping ahead, but when Jesus gets done with all his Sermon on the Mount talk, it says that the people who were listening were astounded, completely astounded. which will happen when the ball is left in our court and there is a better way that has been laid out in front of us.
Matthew 5:38 through 42, the Message. Here's another old saying that deserves another look. Eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. Is that going to get us anywhere? Here's what I propose. Don't hit back at all. If someone strikes you, stand there and take it. If someone drags you into court and sues you for the shirt off your back, gift wrap your best coat and make a present out of it. And if someone takes unfair advantage of you, use the occasion to practice the servant life. No more tit-for-tat stuff. Live generously. Hello, my name is Michael. I live in Southern California, but sometimes it feels like I have to be in two different places at once. On one hand, I want to totally and completely give my life to God. I want to show His ways to others and be one of His instruments. After all, isn't that what I'm called to do? But real life just isn't that easy. I know I need time with God, but there are a million other things that deserve my attention. There's school, of course, and everyone can tell you something better to do when you're an 18-year-old. Exercise more, work harder, apply for scholarships, research careers, don't be a slob, figure out what you're going to do with your life. It's just so much for me. So when my mom asks me how my time with God is going, it feels pointless. I have so much on my plate at once. Sometimes I just need to forget about everything. Need to hang out with my friends. I know they probably aren't the best people to spend all of my time with, but I know they mean well. My mom wishes I didn't spend as much time with them, and my dad, he's just too busy with work to notice. My friends are just fun. I need a good laugh, and when I'm with them, there are plenty. But a lot of times, the stuff they like to joke about really bothers me. They take every chance they see to make fun of people. If they see someone with a disability, all they see is a chance to be funny. And they always go back to groups of people they think they're better than. And always whatever's different about them that makes them better. Whether it's black people or gay people. Man, it's a tough spot. I hate that stuff. It makes me crawl inside. We all have our own struggles and stuff that we're trying to get through. So why can't we love like Jesus did? I know that Jesus was all about reining that stuff in. All the jokes and talk about those people just adds fuel to the fire. So why can't we talk about the good in people? Why do we have to be one more reason that they can't have a good day or just be happy? Why do we have to make them feel different to try to change themselves to fit in? But what am I supposed to do? Hey guys, God calls us to love one another, so we should really stop saying that. I'm sure that's going to go over real well. It's 2022 now. Jesus talked about giving away shirts, walking extra miles, letting people slap you and being okay with it. How does that fit now? I mean, this stuff was great in Jesus' time, but today? No, not today. It's hard enough to get through the day without tripping over yourself. Now you're supposed to get slapped twice and be okay with it? How am I supposed to do all of that? Things seemed so much simpler back then. It was a slower time. There weren't all the distractions that I have to deal with. So do those same rules really have to apply to me well over 2,000 years later? A lot has changed since then, a lot. Maybe if I would just say something to my friends, they would stop saying those things around me, or maybe I'd just become the new joke. I usually just try to nod my head and change the conversation. I don't like controversy, and I don't want anyone to get mad. After school one day, I went straight home and started on my homework. I was excited for the weekend. My friends and I were going skating Saturday, and on Friday night we were watching a movie. I was almost finished when my mom came into my room and had announced that Dad was taking off for the week and we were going to the mountains to spend time together. This was one of the last things that I wanted to hear. I was going to hang out with my friends, and I have to spend time in a cramped camper listening to Dad snore for a week. To make matters worse, on the drive up, Dad asked me what I'd been doing for fun, and before I could answer,
Mom butted in and told him about my friends and said that they were probably a bad influence for me. But something happened while we were up there. I found out that I was actually having fun. I was having a really good time and thought that it might be something in the air, but Mom said it was probably because I wasn't hanging out with my friends anymore. And honestly, I was beginning to think that she was right. Once we got back home and I went back to school, I knew that she was right. Once I started hanging out with those guys again, I felt this huge weight put back on my shoulders. So I started hanging out with them less and less over the weeks. And it seemed that that helped to flip my time, to spend more time with my family and less time with the friends that talk pulls me down. I started to feel like this is who I was, and it felt good. It felt like God had taken my hand and was finally walking me through life, like a friend, a real friend. When I did hang out with my friends, I found myself getting so angry inside. Why couldn't they just talk about anything else? I wanted to fight back. How would they feel if I said hurtful and personal things about them? But that would make it no better than what they were doing. I feel God with me more, but I still want to get back at people when they're acting that way. It's just hard for me to understand why we got away from an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. No more tit for tat stuff. Let bullies be bullies. Doesn't that tell them it's okay to be mean to people and hurt them in so many ways? Love is great and all, but it's not going to save the world from rude people. Times have changed. What would Jesus say if he walked in 2022? Would he say the same things? I still struggle with wanting retaliation. I think Jesus did too. Look what happened when people were selling things in the market, or when the Pharisees just weren't getting the point. I think of some of the things he said to them. Woe to you, hypocrites! I think he knew how I feel. And I know he loved people more than I do, but somehow he walked through the mess and managed to rein in the hate. I sure am walking through the mess, but how am I supposed to live like Jesus did in 2022? What's that supposed to look like? And is it even possible?
To leave the stones unthrown, to turn the other cheek, to bear a load an extra mile, to listen more than speak. We will play it for you. Would you, if you'd like, you may stand.
sweet conscience joys, we find the grace to hear and heed the bidding of Christ's voice. New crosses